All right, Coach Grice, it's Wednesday. We're back at it again, talking Preps Overtime, what's become the biggest podcast here in the North Carolina area for covering high school football. What is your little Dare to Cherokee? What's your motto you like to throw in?
I take it from when the undergrad at North Carolina A&T, and our alma mater talks about spreading trophies from Dare to Cherokee, excuse me. So that's always our motto. We're covering you from Dare to Cherokee, baby.
All right, man. I always said from the Highlands to the coast, but either way, Dare to Cherokee, yeah. I kind of like that too. But anyway, you mentioned spreading trophies around. We're going to bring on a coach today. The coach is for a team that has spread a lot of trophies over a huge body of work from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and they're on the precipice of maybe winning even another one. But we're going to bring on Coach Bryan Till, the head football coach at Richmond Senior High School. Coach, I appreciate you joining Coach Grice and I today on Talking Preps Overtime.
Hey, really appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
Oh, definitely, Coach. I mean, it's, I love having you on here to talk with us. And, kind of we'll start with how we start with everybody. I mean, we could go on here for hours, but, could you kind of give an intro to some of our fans that maybe don't know exactly who you are, kind of give a background of your playing and coaching history?
Sure. So I came up to sorry, guys, they may have some announcements come on here. It's that time of day here. So I don't know if I can mute that out or not, but so for me, I came up from Georgia 14 years ago. Did my career started at the University of Georgia, and I did my undergraduate and my graduate degree there, and I worked had a strength conditioning internship with the Atlanta Falcons right after that. Started at Athens Academy as a strength conditioning coach, and just loved the game of football so much I got into it. Moved up here without going through all that stuff, moving through. Moved up here to being in my family in North Carolina. They had moved up here from Georgia. So I moved up here at that time, 12, 13 years ago, and 13, 14 years ago now. And so just kind of working my way through the ranks. Started in Fayetteville, Terry Sanford. Wayne Inman hired me as a strength coach and ended up being offense coordinator there after a year. And then got my first head coaching job at Cape Fear High School and came back to Terry Sanford, and now been at Richmond now for 5 years. And it sounds like quick, but it's a little bit of time at each place. And I really enjoy working with the people at each place, and I've enjoyed getting to know people like Chris and yourself, Coach Grice. Being in North Carolina, it all still seems new to me, even though I've been here for 15 years. So in my fifth season at Richmond, and just looking forward to whatever else that we have here in this playoff run.
Definitely. And I mean, it's, about to be an epic playoff run, I think, with the new playoff brackets. But, we'll start there kind of talking about you being at Richmond Senior. It's one of the most well-known high schools in the state. And for me, it's one of the most unique. And I love kind of seeing and hearing about some of the specifics to where you're literally a local community leader. I love the fact that you have the state of the program address. I mean, heck, I was reading an old article. You had state senators, you had the police chief of Hamlet that's in attendance for your state of the program address. So, can you discuss how unique the head coaching job, is there? And it's definitely different to compare to maybe some of the bigger cities.
Sure. I mean, you have some responsibility here to the community because everyone is so tied to the program. There's not any divided loyalties, so to speak, in the county. And so, and you realize that on Friday nights, this is what a lot of people do and what most people do on Friday nights when it's at home. So you feel a responsibility to the community, not just from the standpoint of the future with these kids, but also economically, that you're bringing, folks into the county. You're talking with economic leaders and things and ways that you want to be able to support what they're doing in the county, the vision they have for the county. And people are coming in, and it's maybe the only time that year they come in, or a couple times that year they come into the county. What is the face we want to put on? We want people to see the good things that are here in Richmond County. And so, I think that's kind of how all that ties together, where you have all those leaders who are involved and want to know kind of what we're doing, because they realize that this is a way that statewide, we can kind of put our face out there for everybody to see all the great things that are going on and the great community we have here.
Well, you kind of answered the question I was about to throw out there to you, Coach, in terms of your position within the community. And you're right, even people like myself who I've lived in and around the Richmond area in the past, coached in Fayetteville, so I've spent a lot of time there playing in that facility. But, even for me coming in for playoff games or for big-time games, I always try to go eat at some of the local establishments just because I always try to support the local community, any place I go to. But I was going to ask you, you in the position you're in, and, I can think back to some of the really influential coaches that have been at that school, and there's been a great deal of them. We can't list them all, but, I think back to, whether it's Paul Hoggard or Darryl Barnes or any of them. I mean, it's almost like you're in a position there where I don't want to say you're the most powerful man in the county, but maybe one of the more influential, almost like the mayor or a county commissioner. I mean, I got to imagine you being the head coach at the biggest school in the county, the only school in the county, and having the success that you guys have, that has a lot of responsibility that you kind of have to carry with you every day.
Yeah, sure. I think your integrity is important in this position. I think it's not so much influence or power, but people are paying attention to what you say. I think they'll consider what you say because you do have a platform, so to speak. You have a lot of young men who are going to take what you say back to their families, to their homes. You have men who've been involved in this program in the past. Timus Terry right now is actually in Tennessee, but he's been reaching back out here, trying to get some programs going on some positive things for our kids, and he's all the way in Tennessee. So I say that to say people do care about what you're doing with that, and that carries some influence, but I think it carries more so some responsibility that you're the same person all the time. When you go out and eat, are you the same guy who's preaching to the kids at the end of practice about doing things the right way, doing things controlling your language, your temperament, your things like that. I think for me, it's less about influence and more about responsibility on my part in everyday life and what I do, and to make sure that a sermon yesterday at church was on integrity. That's what you do. You carry yourself with that.
Coach, I definitely, it's kind of interesting, of course, that you talk about the unique nature of the program and, like you said, how you'll see plenty of people, just living your everyday life and want to come up to you. What's that story? Like that time maybe you're in Home Depot, like buying something for the house and somebody came up and wanted to talk ball or had a crazy question. Talk about that for us.
Hey, man, go in the food line right now. That's just that's you're right. That's every day. I mean, anytime but what's great is, it's just, hey, Coach, man, congratulations. It's more of that kind of stuff. Congratulations. What's going on? I hadn't had anybody slip me any plays or anything like that. There's probably not any scratch paper in the store that they want to grab, so maybe they write on the back of a receipt. But, it's nothing like that. It's always been extremely positive here. And you hear a lot of, people who worry, say, hey, well, what about the pressure there? And, yeah, I mean, there's pressure to win. But, I think people are more appreciative of what we're doing than anything. So, like I said, if I go down, US 1 here to the food line or go to the grill or something after that, everybody's just, they're going to wave, hey, Coach, how you doing? Hope everything's all right. I have had, my meal bought here and there once or twice, and that's been something that kind of surprised me. You go to pay and somebody's paid for that. So that's probably what people think about. Oh, that stuff that doesn't happen very often. So when it has a couple of times, that's been kind of neat for that to happen, and happened with me and a couple of coaches eating together, once before. So that's been probably, if you're talking about any story that's just kind of neat, it stands out as, you go to pay your waitress and somebody has taken care of it and you don't know who it is, and they care about what we're doing. So that's, but other than that, it's mostly just, small talk. Hope things are going well. Hey, let us know if you need anything. Appreciate what you're doing. And that's, it's just, it's a great feeling to know that they care about you.
Hey, Coach, I've got a background in Texas high school football when I was in the military out that way. I've seen the biggest and best the state has to offer. I've followed high school football big time in South Carolina. Of course, I've always said that Highway 74 corridor, whether from Wilmington all the way through Scotland and Richmond and through Charlotte and even out through Cleveland County, is what I consider to be some of the best football in the state. Well, you mentioned, you came from Georgia, so you've seen football there, and I know that football is big time there. I've seen the stadiums. I've seen a lot of what it has to offer. Kind of give us a comparison of just how, I'm not necessarily meaning the athletes on the field, but just the aura of the community support, just everything in Texas or in Georgia football compared to Richmond County and what you've seen in your area.
So in general, in North Carolina, and I don't mind, I'll talk athletes, talk it all. I mean, I love this stuff. So, in general, I was actually pleasantly surprised coming up here several years ago, athletically, to where that compared. You grow up in a state like Georgia or Texas, with your football, and you kind of become, as snobbish about, oh, well, no one's better than us. And it's really more out of ignorance. You don't know any better because that's all you've seen. But you do take a lot of pride in it. So when I come up here, I was really impressed with the athletes. per capita that I was seeing. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it is. And you can see that in the number of guys in the last 10 years who've been in the NFL from this state. And, my dogs right now got a big dog, number 99, playing nose tackle from Mallard Creek, so, I love to see that kind of stuff. And you can see it. So I think that wasn't as much. I mean, that kind of was shocking to me. The thing that you see that is very where the space is great. I'm trying to think of the right words, right verbiage, but the space is really great is in facilities and in support statewide. The state of North Carolina, from a standpoint of communities, do not support, and I'm not talking about just football, the athletic and school facilities in the same way that Georgia does. Georgia has had some programs with the Hope Grant that has allowed money to go back into school facilities. It's also allowed, they have the SPLOST, which is a special local option sales tax, where those communities can vote to increase their sales tax by 0.25% for X number of years in order to build new facilities. And that has really, those communities, it goes through almost every time that I've known of when it's going to increase things for those kids in extracurriculars, because that community believes in it. So I think that's something that you would see statewide that's different, from what you see here in North Carolina. Now in Richmond, we have better facilities than most places in North Carolina, and that's not hard to see when you go. But even with that, some of that is starting to age a little bit, and it's the upkeep of facilities has to be something that is a priority in order to keep the facilities great. I mean, our stadium is fantastic. And it's one of those cool venues with you got press box on both sides. The stands are almost even on both sides, and it's all brick. And so that's just it's a great thing, but there's upkeep to that. And I think, moving forward, that's going to be a big thing, even at Richmond and everywhere else. The places that do have facilities, the Worley's got a great spot up there. What are we doing to maintain those? And from an aspect of, as a state, and of course I can speak to Richmond County, but, if you want to be a champion, you want kids to have a champion's mentality. How are you modeling that for them? As adults, we don't get to go out there and show them, hey, here's how we knock somebody's head off. Here's how we go out and train. I mean, I get in there and lift with the guys, but I ain't nearly as impressed with some of my guys. Thank God, if they're playing with my strength levels, it'd be a problem. So, but we show them as adults by our commitment, really in funds and dollars. Okay, we're committed to this. We can show you. And if it's not dollars, it's our time and sweat equity. And so those things they have to see out of us in order to say, all right, we want you to be a champion. Well, here's how we're going to commit to you.
I agree, Coach. I mean, that's amazing. I don't know, Coach. I think you got a little bit of strength. I mean, I think you might be able to handle some of those guys when you catch them slipping.
Well, yeah, I was good once. The problem is that over and over again, I can't even do the worm as good as I used to after games when we get excited, down here. So.
No, I love it, Coach. And I kind of want to touch on that for a second. Anyone that knows you, knows and can see the passion. I mean, I always tell the story of all my friends, and I left the game that you guys were victorious over Butler Memorial Stadium. I was like, man, I got a good little shoulder in my chest from Coach Teal there. I was like, I love the energy. But can you talk about where that comes from and just that source of that passion and just how you've been able to channel it to be so successful?
Sure. I think the source of everything for me comes from Jesus Christ. I'm just going to be, and I don't mind it, just letting that out there, because I have a joy day in and day out to be alive. I'm so thankful to Him for my salvation and what's going on, and to see young men have joy in their lives. And so my joy and the fact that Christ has given me joy gives me a chance to then enjoy seeing those guys be joyful and enjoy what they're doing, enjoy the process of development in their lives. I think that's the most fun as a high school coach to me is the development aspect of kids and seeing them. Guys always talk about guys reaching back out to you, and that's great, but it's not about the reaching back out and hey, pat me on the back. Oh yeah, I feel good that I did something for him. It's more that, man, that kid wouldn't have done that when he's 18. He's got the maturity, to come back and reach back and say, hey man, I appreciate you. And it's not the pat on the back about the appreciation. It's the fact that you saw him grow enough to be a man enough to say that to somebody. Because there's even grown men who have problems saying that with their feelings. And hey, man, I appreciate you. I tell my daddy I love him every time he gets off the phone. I say sir to my kids here because my dad has said sir to me and my brother every time, talking to us. I call him Bud, hey, Bud, because that's what my dad says. Hey, Bud, what's going on? So those men in my life, like I said, my faith, and then those men in my life who've modeled that faith for me and how to handle that and how to it just brings me a joy that allows me to really love my guys, love the guys I'm coaching with. And I feel like that's really hopefully what you see, and especially when you see those kids, like you talking about the Butler game, man, the fight they had to have to come back. And I walked over and told Kellen before he went out there in the last drive, you better do something special. And I didn't say it trying to be a coach, be a psychologist. Like, I just believed in him, right? I've said that several times over the years and been wrong too. I mean, but when it's right, when you say it and you're right, you believe in that kid and it's right, man, it's a fulfilling experience. And so I think that's what you see, especially since I'm not technically calling, I'm just interjecting on both sides of the ball now, I really get fired up when it all works out, So it's a lot of fun here.
Actually, I'll go with a follow up there, especially you talk about your injecting now and kind of getting on both sides. What's been that one time that you've kind of interjected and tried to ask or push one thing and it was completely dang wrong? You're like, dang, Teal, why did you do that? Like,
even just the other night, I was like, hey, we'd run the screen a couple times and we had the twos in, and I was like, hey, let's run the screen again right here. And God almighty, it got blown up, and so it's kind of like it just goes quiet on the mic for a little bit, it's just more. It's not Teal, what are you doing? It's kind of like, all right, what we got next? Like, all right, let's get that one up, So some of that, most of the time we got good enough guys. They don't really need what I got to say, but I do think that's been now talking about that. It's a very different thing. I've called offense. I called offense for 8 years. I called defense for first several years I was here and coached DBs before I called offense. So I've always been extremely involved in every play, somehow, or I shouldn't say in every play, but in every play on one side of the ball or the other. So that has been something I have really tried to talk to guys. I've tried to grow. We're talking about the growth of kids. I've tried to grow as a professional in, all right, how do I do this? How do I help my team? We're all still team players. Head coach still a team player. So how do I help my team get better here without hampering my coaches? How do I push them without them feeling like somebody's looking over their shoulder, And that's been a hard battle. If I'm just being straight up honest, and we're talking about that has been a struggle for me. But I mean, I'm working at it because I want my guys to feel like, hey, coach has got my support. He's doing everything he can though to help us be better. And so that's been an interesting dynamic. Yeah, Grice, the headset would be a pretty good entertainment for a lot of people.
Oh, definitely. No, we had that good moment during one of the JV games. One of our varsity kids actually was able to get on the headset. And, I mean, you could just tell his eyes, while we were on there, in the middle of the game. And I had no clue he was on there. Right. But just him just like, I never knew it was like this. I thought you guys were just, talking crap, talking about the weather or something. I was like, yeah, we're working out here.
That's it.
Those moments are cool. Definitely want to ask, especially as we look at some of the more rural areas, even around here, I guess the example we have is kind of like an A.L. Brown where, I call it the neighborhoods change. You got like some of the mills that existed closed. Sure. You have people kind of moving and it really changes the dynamics of the schools that, school that you're in. Have you noticed that at Richmond Senior? And I think, do you feel a little bit more pressure now that the neighborhoods kind of change and it gets a little tougher to get some of those, great Richmond teams of old that you've had?
Sure. I think what you see there, and you see it, especially coming out of COVID, is what you're seeing is the participation numbers. I don't think for us, it's not Milltown stuff because we're still somewhere around 150 kids in the program before, pre-COVID. And so there's some of that. I haven't been here since the mills have been open. So for me, it's just what I know has always been this. But I hear a lot of people talk here, and that still kind of hangs on some individuals, particularly more of our supporters. Our kids are young enough now, they don't really remember. So there's nothing from that standpoint. And we've actually had some businesses open up, some large businesses open up on 74, and I think we'll probably continue to have some of that because 74 is such an easy way to get to 95 or back over to Charlotte. And our people here are blue-collar folks, and so they don't mind working and having those types of jobs, where they can produce things and get them out on 74. So we've had some of that come back in some other different ways. So just to be direct about your question, I don't see. I have an understanding of it mentally, but from a standpoint of our interactions with our fans and our kids, there's really not a realization of what that is or what that was and where we are now.
No, I completely understand that, and that makes sense. So for you, looking at kind of a longer term aspect, I mean, do you see, and I guess it encompasses even Richmond moving to the east. What are some of the new challenges that you see, in your fight to keep it up and stay at that elite level that you guys have been operating at since you've been there?
So I think one of the big things is development. So many kids are, people are telling them to specialize, and particularly. And I'm glad we're talking about this because it seems like people always want. Well, football needs to give up athletes. Football needs. Well, every football coach I know loves other athletes. It tends to be, and I don't want to. I'm not pointing the finger like you guys need to do better. I'm saying the reality is it tends to be other sports that tell kids don't play football or don't play. If you're a full-time baseball player, don't play basketball. Just play fall baseball and play. So that's happening a little earlier, and I see that as a challenge, and especially in a rural area like this, where that's one thing that is significant. To smaller schools and to rural areas, you tend to share athletes in multiple sports, and so that is a challenge I see. That needs to be addressed. Really, statewide, it's tough. So it needs to be addressed at local levels and local entities in order for it to have an impact and kind of grow. I think there's some ways we could probably partner with some of those travel, programs that rural areas would build facilities for travel programs to come in, and that way you get an influx of economic development, and economic money, but also have a chance to grow your kids without them having to travel all over the place and still get some of those experiences so that parents don't see that as, hey, I've shortened my kid. So I think that's part of it. I think continued development in football because a lot of our youth guys, and I'm not talking about here, our youth guys are doing a great job, but they've got to get those guys might change next year. Well, if they change, it could be a problem, So continued development of youth coaches. It's not something I think we talk about enough. We talk about youth kids and those kids developing football players, but who develops them? Who are the adults who are responsible for those kids? And I think a lot of guys who are coaching youth around the country, you see all these crazy YouTube videos or Twitter or where they're still kids are just getting killed and they're laughing and that hurts us. Do I think that's the norm? No, but I think there are those guys. So having some sort of vetting process and training process for youth guys is going to be good, and would be good for us and for everybody. I think, like I said, our Raider Elite group that's gotten going here is developmentally is helping us, but that's got to continue, and we got to do what we can. We can't help them budget wise, so what are the things we can do? And I think the problems are figuring out what that is. So trying to answer your question about what those problems are, because you can't come up with solutions till you know what the problems are. But
right,
I'm not, I'm a guy who believes in the no complaining rule. That's fine. You're going to come up with a problem, come with two solutions, right? Yeah. So I think that's the thing we've got to figure out how that moves forward. But those are the couple of things I see with the sport of football in particular.
I'm listening to you talk, Coach, and I sense and I can feel that you're a great teacher. I can only imagine how good you are in the classroom. In fact, I've been in your weight room one day when you was doing maxes, and just to watch you go through that process, I mean, you're a great teacher and a motivator all at the same time. But you just hit something that kind of touched a nerve with me and the development of coaches. I think that's something that's important to me, and it's important to the longevity of this game. And I feel like that you are living that because I've looked at the staffs that you have been able to assemble and create, and not just your varsity staff, but your JV staff, your freshman teams over the year. And you've got some guys already on your staff, whether it's James Johnson or Coach Denson or maybe even Patrick Hope, who's running your JVs. I think you have developed some tremendous coaches who are probably ready to be head coaches today, but have continued to stay on that Raider squad. But I guess it's got to give you a sense of pride to know that you every day, every practice, every meeting, you're watching these guys grow and knowing that one of these days they're going to become big head coaches themselves and lead men, maybe even at Richmond one day. Yeah,
I take a lot of pride in those guys, but and I'm not saying this to have false humility, but I don't know how much I have to do with their development. They're pretty doggone good on their own. They have a drive on their own to really work. I've been really fortunate to work with Jake who's at Cape Fear, Jake Thomas at Cape Fear, and Bruce McClellan's at Terry Sanford. And I've just been, I think, even much more so, I've just been blessed to be around good dudes, and we just enjoy the teamwork approach with each other, enjoy, hey, taking care of our responsibilities and seeing the fruits of that with each other. So I would be very proud of those guys. I wouldn't take a lot of pride in feeling like I had helped them a whole lot other than just, grinding it out day in and day out. I got the laundry in here. I got to flip again when we get done. So make sure I'm doing my part, in this whole thing. But I appreciate that, Chris, and that means a lot. And the teaching stuff, I'm going to have to make sure my mom sees this because, she's a retired teacher of a lot of years. So she'll be probably more proud of that compliment than anything else. I assure you.
Well, I know Grice has a couple more, and I got one more as well. But I got to ask you this question because I think it's pertinent on the mind of everybody that's ever played a game against Richmond or in Raider Stadium. But do you believe in magic? Because everybody else seems to.
I do believe. I'm a guy who my entire life people talk about luck, and I'm like, don't give me luck. I don't want to hear that. I believe though that man, and this is what I tell the kids. I told them this. I started telling them this 2 weeks ago. If I'm trying to get fired up. I'm just trying to stay.
Oh yeah, come on, get going.
But if, you go ahead right now and start thinking in the playoffs about what play you're going to make. Right, you go ahead and start. I don't care how crazy it is. Ball bounces here. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. Go ahead. You make that decision. Go ahead and start making that decision. You're going to play when it's cold. Go ahead and make that decision that you're going to do and make it over and over and over and over again before it ever happens. And I believe that magic happens because we have seen ourselves 100 times or 1,000 times. And I'm an exercise science guy too, so I know the power of visualization. Visualize yourself winning, visualize yourself doing something special. And then when it happens, you're not going to surprise yourself. You might surprise everybody else. I mean, you're not going to surprise yourself because to you, that magic has happened in your mind over and over and over again. So we definitely believe here and amongst our coaching staff and amongst our kids that if we believe it, right, we can achieve it. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it means we're going to believe in it 100% and give everything we got to make it happen. So that's where Raider Magic comes from. It comes from a community that believes that too. It stands up and says, all right, we believe whoever comes in here, all right, we can beat them. And our kids hear that outside of here. They hear that we believe in them. And I think that's what the magic, for any young man who gets the opportunity to play this sport or anything else magical to happen in their life is because, and I told you guys earlier, I believe in something a whole lot greater than myself. And I believe that power, that's there, is what fuels you. And so when you have that kind of belief, you're not surprised by anything that happens on this side of heaven.
And do you have any magical powers in that light show? Because that's got to be the coolest thing. Does that hype teams up? What do you feel about the lights?
Hey, I'm going to tell you what I'm excited about. Coach Denson's got a new song he's kind of put with the lights to come out with on Friday. We changed that up a little bit, so I'm excited about that. It's a lot of fun. It's darker this time of year, so the lights kind of pop a little bit more, so it gets our guys going. And, I tell you, a moment people don't talk about the lights, but one of the coolest moments is when, if it's October or even now, right before the fourth quarter, we turn them off, and the uplighting that's on the post. Everybody talks about the flashing lights. But man, when it's green up on the post, everybody pulls out the cell phones. Kind of looks like it does at Georgia, when it goes right there. And then during October, they can change those colors pink, which is it's just really cool how it does add to the ambiance, there, Chris, in so many different ways.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. Like I said, that light show is definitely something unique to this state, and something you don't see for many miles.
Right.
But Coach, like I said, I love listening to you talk. I mean, you give us so many gems, not to use that term loosely, but one last question from me. For younger coaches that are entering this profession, what advice would you give them? I mean, they hop on an elevator, they see you at a coach's clinic. Hey, Coach Till, coming in. What would you tell them? For that advice as they navigate their career.
So I'm going to take a second on this because I don't want it to be just a flippant, cliche answer. But I would think, the first thing is, and this is going to sound cliche, but kind of know who you are. I told you a while ago, my basis of my faith. I mean, I think you got to know who you are. But I would also say, treat this profession with respect. You can be different in a lot of ways, right? But I think, and I don't mind calling NCAA out a little bit right here, the transfer portal and the 6-year senior stuff and the stuff like that is hurting high school recruiting right now, right? Were decisions that were made without the thought of the longevity of this sport, all right? And I'm all about kids, getting a chance to make money off their name and stuff. That's a whole different discussion. But my point here is, let's think about our decisions as you're moving up so that this sport has a future, right? The integrity of your actions, how it is carrying yourself on social media, how does that affect our sport as a whole? What do people who are the fans, the people who actually pay your salary, what do they think of us, all right? What do they think of us as a group? How do our actions affect this sport? Because eventually, if the sport is not viewed positively, none of us get a paycheck from it. Right. It doesn't matter. We can do it because we love it and none of us make money off this sport. but the sport goes away because it's an expensive sport to play. The stadiums, the equipment, everything else. So to young coaches, I would say, think about your platform as a football coach, as an assistant too, and how you affect the sport of football moving forward so that, you get to be the guy answering this question one day. All right, well, how would you tell the young guys? Because if we don't have respect for this game and the future and make decisions based on the future of it and creating a culture and a climate of greatness amongst ourselves, then none of us are going to have an opportunity to keep doing it.
Well said, Coach. Well said. And just the final question I always like to throw out. I feel like I've known you for, it seems, 10, 15 years, but a long time, dating back to when I was in Fayetteville. I met you, I don't know if you remember meeting you and your wife at Terry Sanford that one Sunday afternoon. Mm-hmm. You came and met me when I was out making my rounds. I've got to see you from a lot of different angles. I've seen you from coaching at Terry Sanford to Cape Fear to Richmond. So, I've enjoyed watching you ascend through the coaching ranks. I'm proud of what you've accomplished. But I want to ask you this. We can't all do what we're doing forever. One of these days, Coach Teal's going to hang it up and do something else. But, despite all the wins and the potential of championships that you may win, what do you want your players, your community members, just people to think of you when they think of Coach Till, the person, instead of just necessarily Coach Till, the feisty, fired up guy on the sidelines during Friday nights?
Well, and I'm going to get emotional with this, guys. My grandma just passed. We had her funeral last Monday in Tallahassee. We've had in my family since June, both my grandmas passed. My wife has lost her grandma and grandfather and an aunt. And the reason that makes me emotional, you ask that question, is I've had the reality of seeing those, that being said in front of your casket a lot here in the last several months. And I've thought about that a lot, Chris. And honestly, all the cliches everybody talks about with relationships and all that, absolutely. But man, I want people to just feel like, he tried his best to be a good dude. He's a good person. He loved his wife. He loved his daughter. He loved his family. My family comes, and Chris, because you've seen it. Grice, I don't know, has had a chance because at the Butler game is a little different. But my dad does the stats, sends them to us as soon as the game's over. My mom was doing water last year. My uncle does the Twitter feed for them. You guys see our Twitter feed on the sideline. That's my uncle. So I want people to know that I cared about those people I love, and that includes my kids, my players, the guys I coach with. That I love them, and that I'm not ashamed to say, man, I love you and mean it, and not just it be a cliche. And that's real. And when it is over, that coach, the guys can say, man, that getting teary and all that. And, I saw my dad cry in church first time. I'm like, what's wrong with him? But he was praying over me, and that I pray over these guys every day, and that's what I want them to go, is that what I do, anything I do, every decision I make, whether it's when I hang it up or whatever, it'll be because I think it's, what's best at the time, because everything I do is just trying to do what's best and trying to be the best dude. I'm a human being. So you watch me all day, you're going to find several mistakes during the day, but I'm going to try to be the best dude I can be.
Outstanding, Coach. Well, we've enjoyed your time today. This is going to be a very good podcast, and we're so happy that the fans out there are going to get a chance to get to know you a little bit better. I always enjoy these conversations. Grice, so what do you think? I think it's another good one.
Oh, man, it's another great one. And, and these guys will tell you, one of the first names I yelled out, I was like, man, we got to get Coach Till here. Your passion, the words that you speak and impart over everyone. I think that's always something that I love to hear, something that our listeners are going to, get a chance to experience. Like I tell Guru, I'm the lucky one. I get to be around Guru. I get to listen to coaches like you. I'm just happy that other people get to experience everything I get to. So, Coach, thank you for having us on. We appreciate you.
Yeah, guys, thank y'all so much. And the opportunity to talk about this sport and what we all love to do, man, it's awesome. So y'all keep doing what you're doing. It's very, very greatly appreciated.
Well, guys, for Coach Grice, Coach Till, this is another episode of Talking Preps Overtime in the books.